All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. This is our Neuroscience PhD program information session that is part of the Graduate Diversity and Missions Fair. I want to start with before I do brief introductions, feel free to have your video on or not. We like to see faces, and especially if you want to ask a question and raise your hand, it's nicer if we actually kind of see who is asking the question. And we'll start with a brief round of introduction. So my name is Frédéric Theunissen. I'm a professor in neuroscience. I'm an auditory neuroscientist. I study animal communication, auditory processing, both in animals and in humans. And I'm also the director of the graduate program. And so I run the graduate program with Leleña, Avila, and Peony U. And since I just said that, I'll pass it to them so they can introduce themselves as well.
Hello, everybody. My name is Leleña Avila, and I use the she, her pronouns. And I am the graduate program manager and graduate advisor for the UC Berkeley Neuroscience program. I will be taking care of the technical aspects of this session and keeping an eye on the Q&A. And joining me is Peony Yu.
Hi everyone, my name is Peony Yu. I use she, her pronouns. I am the graduate program coordinator. I'm supporting this session with the Q&A and passing it back over to Frédéric.
Yeah, and we also have three of our current students who are joining us today, Carolyn, Natalia, and Jessica. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, everybody. My name's Caroline. I'm a third year in the neuroscience program in Diana Bautista's lab. I basically study how the peripheral nervous system interacts with immune cells in cases of inflammation, cancer, and infection.
Hi, everybody. I'm Natalia. I'm a first-year student, and I'm interested in cellular and molecular neuroscience. I'm currently doing my first rotation in Marla Feller's lab, where I'm doing whole cell electrophysiological recordings of starburst amacrine cells during retinal waves.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jessica. I'm a third year also in the ISCOF lab. I'm studying synaptic plasticity and homeostasis and using the Drosophila larval NMJ as the model.
You're muted, Frédéric.
Thanks. So I was just telling students thank you for their introduction, and also that for this session we're going to start with a brief overview of the program, which I'll be giving. You will notice that we actually have the chat that is off, but we have the Q&A button. And so if you have specific questions or things come to your mind as I'm talking and you don't want to forget them, you can put them in the Q&A, and then we'll get to those afterwards. Yeah, but you can also raise your hand, and I might not be able to see it, but other people will see if you have question, if your hand is raised, and then we can answer your question directly. So I'm going to share now my presentation. Let's go to the Zoom. Trying to share my presentation. This is interesting.
Are you not able to share?
I'm only able to share my whole screen. It's kind of interesting. Let me just see if I actually start the presentation, if that works better. Interesting. Glitch. Sorry, guys. Try this again. Well, maybe I can share my entire screen. Huh. That's kind of bizarre. I've never had this before. All right, so let's see. Let me see if I can share my screen. You guys can tell me if this works. All right, so you must be seeing my entire screen.
Yes.
And what are you seeing now?
The presentation.
The presentation. Okay, great, awesome. We're there. All right, so let's get going. So this is a super kind of exciting time to do neuroscience, and you know, since you are in this information session, I assume that you're very well aware of this. And I think part of the reason it's such an exciting time is that there's an explosion of methods, and not just in one area, but in multiple areas, whether it's kind of, you know, genomics methods, computational biology, deep learning, you know, artificial intelligence, methods for neural recordings where we can use silicon probes, for example, to record from many brain regions with many neurons. And this allows us to basically ask questions that we were never able to ask before. And so I'm you know, I'm like, obviously I'm a neuroscientist, so I'm excited about all these kind of new possibilities. And again, mostly because it allows us to, as I said, answer questions. So you can see here a little bit on this slide. First of all, just pictures of, you know, a potassium channel, the molecular structure of potassium channel. Here are cells which have been genetically marked and colored according to their genotypes, neural recordings of multiple neurons. And here is a picture of fMRI of somebody listening to speech, and then an equation that shows some computational modeling. One of the things that is unique about Berkeley and great is that we are studying neuroscience at all these different levels. So we have expertise in neuroscience at all these different levels, and we feed on all the different departments that are part of the UC Berkeley campus that you know, are developing these techniques, right? Developing, you know, molecular techniques, biochemical techniques, you know, deep learning techniques. This is happening on the Berkeley campus, not necessarily in neuroscience, but we have the advantage of being able to do that and to kind of hook onto that knowledge. This is the model systems that we use. Again, here we have quite a bit of a diversity, clearly humans and humans throughout the lifetime. So normal adults, we have aging populations, developmental neuroscience that study children, and then of course the animal models, you know, the musculus, the classical, you know, mouse, the classical lab animal model, but also flies, fruit bats, songbirds, etc. So a diverse kind of range of animals that we use as model systems. Neuroscience at UC Berkeley. So we've divided our neuroscience into these 4 different areas: computational, cognitive, systems, and cellular and molecular. There's a lot of overlap between these areas. This is something that you, in your application, we're going to ask you to think about which area you're interested in. But you have to keep in mind that, you know, there's a lot of cross-feed, obviously, cross-feed between these areas. And there are topics like, for example, you know, neuroscience and disease or neurodegeneration, which doesn't really fit very well in one of these areas and is really more, you know, seen across the areas. So, for example, you know, if you're interested in, you know, clinical applications, you might be doing this from a computational perspective, where you're looking at how reinforcement learning, models of reinforcement learning are, you know, misbehaving in situations that lead to addictive behaviors. Or you could be, you know, looking at something that is very molecular if you're interested in Alzheimer's disease. And so there's really kind of, you know, if you're interested in kind of, you know, applications to this and doing something in biology that's more translational, you might be working at many different levels. Our faculty in neuroscience is large, so we have 72 faculty that are part of our neuroscience PhD program. We have approximately 200 students, approximately 200 postdocs. We are very interdisciplinary, so there's multiple departments that are involved in the neuroscience PhD program. The neuroscience department is the major one, but we also have molecular and cell biology, vision science, psychology, integrative biology, and bioengineering. And so there's faculty that are not in neuroscience department who are doing neuroscience research. So I encourage you all to kind of look broadly. If you're looking, oh, is Berkeley a good place for me? Go and check out the websites of the neuroscience and looking at all the neuroscience faculty that are listed in our websites. And then you can go and see that they're in all these different departments. Beyond departments, we have these technology centers, which are really areas that are common to many different groups. So instead of having a lab that has its own, for example, imaging system, we have a center for molecular imaging, for example, that allows multiple labs to have really kind of state-of-the-art machinery. All right. So choosing the PhD program which is right for you at Berkeley. So the neuroscience PhD program that we're talking about, we're taking about 12 students per year in all areas of neuroscience. Is probably the most kind of interdisciplinary program that there is on the Berkeley campus. But if you're really interested in something which is more molecular or genetic, you might want to look at the MCB PhD program. There's a biophysics PhD program as well that is really more into protein structure and imaging and nanotechnologies, but that usually has about 1 to 3 students who's also doing kind of neuroscience research every year. In psychology, the psychology takes a lot more than 5 students per year in the graduate class. But again, these numbers are the ones that are doing neuroscience. There's probably about 5 students in psychology every year that are accepted in labs that do more cognitive neuroscience or systems and behavioral. And then we also have a vision science PhD group that is part of the optometry school that takes in between 8 and 10 students every year, and that studies, as it says here, all aspects of vision. The PhD structure is kind of shown in this timeline. So we have a kind of a general admission policy. We just started doing direct admits, but I'm not going to talk about that other way of joining the PhD program. So what you do is you're accepted into the program, not into a particular lab. And the first year of your PhD, you're going to do 3 rotations. These last about 10 weeks in 3 different labs of your choice. And so there's a little bit of handshake that happens there to find what is the best fit. But you really decide, these are 3 areas that I would like to explore, both to find a home or to kind of learn about techniques in neuroscience that I think, might be relevant to what I want to do. And then at the beginning of your second year, you join a thesis lab. You're going to be learning to teach. So you're going to teach a minimum of 2 classes. Usually it's during your second year and your third year. If you were to teach your third class, it would happen later in your during your PhD. At the end of your second year, you're passing what's called the qualifying exam. This is an oral exam that demonstrates that you're ready. You require all the background knowledge and background techniques to be able to do your PhD research. Once you've passed your qualifying exam, you're basically focused on doing your research. So starting from year 3 on, you're just working on, you become kind of really a full-time researcher. What's shown in pink here is kind of the coursework. So you can see there's a lot of required classes that you're going to be taking your first and second year. And then after your third year, you'll be just, as I said, doing research and taking advanced seminars in kind of topical areas of neuroscience. And then towards the end of your PhD, you're going to publish your results, present them at various venues, and get your PhD. That's the plan. So we at Berkeley are very committed and remain committed to have an inclusive training environment and a supportive scientific community. We are working kind of all the time and very hard to have good mentor-mentee relationships and to kind of improve the climate and make sure that all the students feel like they belong at Berkeley. And we have the strong belief that a diverse group of scientists makes for better science. On that topic, I don't know if you guys seen the latest 2 Nobel Prizes in science, in physics, and in chemistry, both from UC Berkeley. Go Bears! And the chemistry Nobel Prize winner this year is somebody who is from Jordan and whose parents were political refugees, right? And so just to give you an example of how Berkeley can be both diverse and kind of very successful at the same time. And this is something that we strive for. As it says here, about 34% of our students are from I can't quite read, I think, underrepresented backgrounds, and 15% are international, and they're coming from a wide range of undergraduate institutions. Right, and so this is kind of more examples of the things that we do to provide, a supportive and kind of social community. A lot of this is, around emphasizing a sense of belonging and being part of a group of people that help each other, really about support. Doing a PhD is hard. It can be an isolated experience, and we want to make sure that, especially if you're coming from a different part of the country, you might be not familiar with the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area. We want to make sure there's a lot of kind of social activities that are really going to be your social support during your PhD. So we have these things like Neurofriends, which is set up so that students in the program get to go out once a month, throughout their stay here and do some kind of social activity. We have social hours, we have student mentoring, and we are implementing really a mentorship that starts on year one and goes all the way to the time you finish your PhD. And you can see that we're doing it pretty well because we have a very high completion rate of 92%. So I mentioned Berkeley is successful, and our students are part of that success, or I would say should drive that success. And you can see here are some numbers that in the last 5 years we had 238 student papers, and their publications include articles in Science, Nature Neuroscience, Neuron, Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience, etc. Many of our students win very competitive fellowships, including NSF, the NDSCG, the NIHF 31, and the Howard Hughes Gillian Award. Beyond your PhD here at Berkeley, a lot of our PhD students, a large majority, stay in research, and either as postdoc or as industry scientists, or directly as assistant professors. And being in the Bay Area, we also have connections with the kind of startup world and the tech world. And so a lot of our students also who do decide they don't want to stay in academia have very successful careers in the private sector as well. Okay, application tips. So if you've started looking at the application, it has different parts. The two kind of essays that you write are quite important in the application process. You're going to write a statement of purpose. This is where you really demonstrate that you want to do this, right? This is hard. We want to be convinced that this is really something that you are passionate about. So your motivation, what research experience you have, and what are your goals for graduate school. And so as it tells here, we want to hear about your research, but we also want to hear about kind of, what are your aspirations and why you find this exciting. The second essay you're going to be writing is about your personal statement. This is more about your background, your challenges, kind of, the broader context of what aspects of your life made you want to pursue science, or pursue academia, and this is the part where you show kind of your maturity and your readiness for this type of event. Okay, for this type of training. We're also going to ask you to write down 4 to 6 faculty whose research interests you. This is actually very important. We are a very kind of large group of researchers doing a lot of different things. But if you have something that's very, very specific in mind in terms of something that you want to do, and there's only one faculty at Berkeley, this might not be the best match in terms of a PhD program. So we're really looking for somebody who sees the kind of research that happens at Berkeley and can, point 4 to 6 faculty whose research would be great. this is kind of what I want to do. I could be happy in any one of these labs or doing this type of work. Right. You might have questions about, oh, what kind of, what are you looking for? And as it says here, we're not looking for anything specific, just I think the drive to do neuroscience. And of course, you need to have the research background and the academic background to show us that you're competitive. But we're really looking for people that have varying, range of skills. And so, a broad range of talents, backgrounds in our applications is something that we're looking for. The application deadline, I think we're going to mention this one more time, but it's November 21st at 9 p.m. or 8:59 p.m. Pacific time. So that's, midnight Eastern time. We highly recommend you don't wait until the very last minute. At 7 p.m. Pacific time, there's going to be nobody in the office to answer questions if your application didn't go through. So, submit it before noon Pacific time, I think. Would be the best advice, just in case there's something that goes wrong. There's fee waivers. Here's kind of a list of organizations or programs that you might be part of that are eligible for fee waivers. If there's any financial burden in terms of the application, just contact us, and we can talk to you about this and getting a fee waiver. And I think that's it for my presentation. So I'll stop the share. And I think we're going to go now to our students. Leleña, yeah, why don't you take it over, because I've lost my,
So we're going to start with kind of our Q&A, but we want to start that off with asking a question to each of our student panelists. And so if each of you could share why you applied and ultimately decided to join Berkeley Neuroscience, and perhaps something you wish you knew about the program or the application progress when you were applying to the program. And so we're going to start with Natalia, followed by Caroline, and then Jessica.
Awesome. Thanks, Leleña. So I went to undergrad at McGill University and I majored in physiology. And so I ended up really liking the neuroscience parts of physiology, which led me to doing research in a different neuroscience labs during undergrad. And that led me to want to pursue a PhD in neuroscience. And I chose to apply and join the Berkeley program for a number of reasons, but I wanted to be in a program that enabled like true interdisciplinary study, especially coming from a physiology background. I really liked approaching neuroscience questions from an interdisciplinary lens. And Berkeley has that built into the program with the Helen Wheels Neuroscience Institute. So as Frederick mentioned, there's the core neuroscience program faculty, but then there's also faculty that are associated with a variety of departments that all conduct neuroscience research. So for example, I'm doing my second rotation in Marquita Landry's lab, and she is part of the neuroscience department, as well as chemical and biomolecular engineering, which allows me to do neuroscience research using like very unique methods and to approach research questions through the lens of different fields. And I'm also personally interested in going into academia, and so Berkeley provides a lot of teaching opportunities, both mandated by the program, so those 2 semesters of being a GSI, but then also through on-campus initiatives like being a tutor or a reader or a mentor for undergrads. And then also, I'm personally from the Bay Area originally, and so I wanted to be close to home and family. And also, Berkeley has unbeatable weather, culture, food, things to do. So just a great, great place for me to spend the next 5 to 6 years of my life. And something I guess I wish I had known about the application process is to really focus on finding a place that you want to be at for the next 5 years. I think it's really easy to get wrapped into like prestige and schools that you've heard of and things like that. But I remember going through my applications and then getting to the part where I had to name 4 to 6 faculty and being like, I don't know if there is 4 to 6 faculty at this school that I want to work at or that I want to be at. So definitely going through that first before deciding to apply, I think can be really helpful. It's like, for example, for my third rotation, I'm picking between like 3 to 4 labs that I want to pick for my third rotation, which is a much better position to be in than being like there's only one lab that I want to work in, and for whatever reason it didn't work out. I didn't end up liking the research, I didn't end up liking the lab environment. It's good to be in a place that you feel like you have options in the work that you want to do. So yeah.
Okay.
I guess I can
Go ahead, Caroline.
I guess I'll go next. So for why I decided to apply for Berkeley, I'm gonna echo a lot of similar points to Natalia. Mainly at the time, my background is I came out of undergrad at UC Santa Barbara where I did Alzheimer's research. And at the time I was really interested in computational neuroscience, translational neuroscience, but I also wanted a program that had a lot of basic research to fully understand the scope of like discoveries and how they like progress through basic research, translational research, medical research, etc. And Berkeley, from the programs I had seen, had a faculty with emphasis on all of these steps, and particularly with basic research. So that was one reason. And another similar to Natalia was this is going to be like 4 to 6 years of your life. So I wanted to be somewhere that I enjoyed, where it seemed like the university gave a lot of resources to its students to not only like exist, but also succeed and be happy. For something I wish I knew about the program or application process, for the application, I guess something that I wish I knew was that people don't necessarily expect you to keep your interests from when you apply all the way through the end of your PhD. You're allowed to change your interests and what you want to do, and people it's kind of a given that that'll happen. So something I wish I knew during the application process was that it was a little bit more freedom to explore areas that were unfamiliar at the time. And then something I wish I knew about the program is, I guess coming out of undergrad, I didn't really have an idea of how a PhD in general necessarily worked in the context of how to join a lab, what to consider when joining a lab, what sort of things are involved with like applying for fellowships and things like that. Something I wish I knew going into the program is that there's a lot of fellowships that only are available your first year of your PhD, and that yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that they just said. Like, one of the big reasons I chose Berkeley, of course, was because I saw a lot of faculty that I knew I could enjoy working in their labs. And I also love the Berkeley area, but something that wasn't mentioned yet was for this specific program, the Berkeley Neuroscience program, is that there's a strong emphasis on building community. And so there are a lot of different ways that the program provides funds for us to like go eat with our cohort so we can like make a strong connection there. And that's just one way. There's like 4 or 5 different ways that I can think of that they do this. And I think it's really hard to build community, especially if you're trying really hard to get all your work done and like, be a good graduate student and land in the right lab and apply to all these grants. If you don't make time for it and if the program doesn't put effort into this, then I just think it's something I probably wouldn't do. So that was a big reason for me for joining the Berkeley Neuroscience program. And also I like that the cohorts are a bit smaller than other programs I was looking at. Like I was looking at the Berkeley NCD program, for example, and there's like 30 people in the cohort or something like that. It's a little big for me. So I think like 10 to 12 is like a really nice size for a cohort. You can really get to know everybody. And as for things I wish I knew when I was doing the application, it's probably that even as a procrastinator, it's important to get it done early, the essays early, so that you can ask people for input on your essay and then actually have time to, incorporate that advice. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Great. Thanks, Jessica. So, we're get to the point where we are in the Q&A section, and then I've been just started to look at the Q&As and answered a few directly with providing some names of people, faculty people that you might want to reach out to. I see that many of the questions, and I agree this is kind of confusing, is which of the PhD programs is right for me. And because there's overlap, like one participant mentioned the overlap between psychology and neuroscience, for example, in cognitive science and in behavioral and systems neuroscience. And so I think there are some clear differences between these two programs. The Berkeley Neuro, just to give the example of neuroscience versus psychology, the neuroscience, you're admitted into the program and you really are kind of, the program kind of takes care of you kind of throughout your career. I mean, at some point you really, join the lab, and the lab culture is going to be big part of your experience. In psychology, you're really kind of joining a lab. So it's just do direct admits. So you have less flexibility in terms of, getting to go in different labs and learn different techniques, and also just not knowing, maybe there's more than one lab that would work for well. So that's a core difference between those two programs. This said, you might be doing some work where you're saying, maybe the kind of work that I want to do with humans has a lot of human behavior, or it has some, human clinical application, and maybe the psychology training, the kind of classes I will get there are, better in terms of what I want to do. So I encourage you to do two things: is to really look at the kind of the websites of the programs to try to get a feel for that. And if you still have questions, to ask faculty, in particular, specific faculty that you might be interested in. And there was another question similar about, doing some work in kind of, chemistry, material science. I suggested to talk to Marquita Landry, who is our kind of, faculty specialist in this domain, and to see if chemistry could be a better place to do this work, depending on kind of what your interests are. Yeah, so I think those were a lot of the questions.
I think also it might be helpful to look at the different classes, because there's the research component of like being in psych versus or chemistry versus neuroscience, but then there's also the required courses. So that could be another helpful thing to look at in terms of picking a program, because you can see what the required courses are and then some examples of those courses and use those to kind of align with what your interests might be better, in addition to the research that you actually want to end up doing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I see another one that's similar to this is, PhD in neuroscience or bioengineering, if you're interested in computational neuroscience. That one is actually kind of easier for me to answer. The bioengineering program is really more about computation to kind of build new devices or new brain-machine interfaces. It really has this kind of engineering kind of focus in it. It's also a joint program with UCSF, which has, kind of interesting, possibilities in terms of doing things that are more kind of clinical oriented. If you're interested in computational neuroscience more in the theoretical sense, of like, theories of learning, theories of like, neural representation, then the neuro PhD program would be a better place to apply. So yeah, great.
Frederick, so we have some questions about the minimum research. So we require at least 2 years of research experience, but could you talk a little bit more about like what constitutes research experience?
Yeah, I think, this kind of 2 year of experience, it would be kind of cumulative experience that you've had. And I think in terms of, reading the application, what we mostly want to see is that you've reached a level of scientific maturity where you're confident that this is something that you're ready for and that you really want to do, right? And so I think that's what we're looking for. So the kind of research experience could be a mixture of, for example, as an undergrad, you worked in a lab. You actually were not just a technician, but you participated in research. Maybe you presented a poster at a meeting. Maybe you're an author in a publication, not a first author, but you show that you've done some participation. You might have done some summer programs where you worked at at another university or at NIH, and got some additional experience like that. Or maybe after you got your bachelor's, you actually kind of worked in the lab as a technician or even as a lab manager, but a lab manager who participated in research. So all of these things count as research experience. You can see that it's very much, so this 2 years, it could be cumulative, right? It's a more kind of a level of experience that we're looking at than just, being 2 years working for, a particular lab, let's say. Victor, you have your hand up, so it's the only hand up that I see. So I feel like we should go there, and then we'll maybe go back to the Q&A.
All right, thank you very much, Frédéric, and thank you very much to the grad students for sharing their perspective. So I have a quick question, and I wasn't able to put my question in the chat, so I decided to raise up my hand. So I know during the process, Frédéric, while you were talking, you mentioned so we indicating 4 to 6 faculty interest in the application. And I think this question is kind of like directed to the graduate students, but I feel like prior to applying, a lot of people have specific research interests. So for instance, let me say epilepsy, maybe you're interested in epilepsy research or Alzheimer's disease research. And so like in terms of choosing the faculty, so for instance, if you are interested in epilepsy research, but there are only like 1 or 2 faculty in Berkeley, for instance, how do you decide, okay, how do you meet up with the 4 to 6 requirements? Do you think, okay, I'm also interested in maybe Alzheimer's disease research, and you can include that among the research interest and decide to choose more faculty in that area of research, or you only stuck to epilepsy, only maybe all the faculty in epilepsy research area. So kind of wanted to get some clarity in regards to that area of I think I'm uncertain in regards to that.
Yeah. I think this is I'm glad you asked that question, Victor. Maybe I'll take a stab, and if the students want to kind of pitch in. If you're interested in a disease particular, I think one of the things that we need, and I tried to say this in my presentation, but Berkeley is really a basic science institution, right? And we do have a lot of collaborations with UCSF. That is where the medical school is. But if you're thinking for things like epilepsy or Alzheimer's, right, and you really want to work in an Alzheimer's group, you're going to really have very few faculty that are really, seeing Alzheimer's patients, for example. I mean, I can think of one, for example, at Berkeley, right? And epilepsy, again, there's a very small number of faculty who are just, treating, or dealing with patients that have epilepsy. So, has a kind of day-to-day hands-on kind of, more applied kind of work for, curing the disease or studying the disease. But, right, what we, this is kind of our strength at Berkeley, right? I mean, if you think about it, something like epilepsy or Alzheimer's, there's all this other basic science that could have really important ramifications for epilepsy or for Alzheimer's. And so this is what I would recommend is okay, would I be able to also be interested in somebody who's doing, something about, cellular excitability and how this could be involved in epilepsy, just at the level of, ion channels and so forth, right? And if that's really not something you're interested in, Berkeley might not be a good program for you. So this is something that really for you to decide. But that's kind of my recommendation. I don't know if any of our students want to pitch in a little bit, because I think this is an important topic.
Yeah, I think in terms of the 4 to 6 that you have to put on the application, that's less of it's not like a test and there's no right answer. That's really an opportunity for you as an applicant to look to see whether there are 4 to 6 faculty members at Berkeley that you want to work with. So for example, when I was compiling my list, I had done previous work in the retina. And so I put down Marla Feller and Rich Kramer because they're 2 faculty at Berkeley that look at um, that do research in the retina. And then I also put down, at this point, I'm not even sure if I could remember the exact other 4 that I put down, but it wasn't necessarily something that specifically aligned with previous research that I'd done. It was a list that I had compiled from looking through the faculty members and looking at their labs and their recent papers and seeing, oh, this is really cool. Like I hadn't done a lot of systems work. So I know that I put down some systems faculty as a way to just see what type of research I'd be interested in, but there isn't any necessarily like right or wrong answer. It's really just about something that you find interesting and doesn't necessarily have to exactly line up with what you talk about in your application, which I think Caroline mentioned, where I think there's this idea that you have to, in your application, say, I'm going to do epilepsy research and I'm going to do it this way and this is what I'm going to do. And that's really not I don't think that's what the program is looking for because research interests change. You change your ideas of what you want to do change, and that's good. And Berkeley is a good place to be able to do that at. So it's not really something that you have to have, 6 people that line up exactly with what your application talks about.
Sophia, I'm going to go to you next, but I want to kind of try to answer like 10 Q&A at the same time, and maybe Leleña can pitch in. So there was a bunch of Q&A about funding and international funding as well. So the UC Berkeley does have funding for international students. So every year in our class, on our class of 12, we'll have, between, 2 and 4 international students, which is corresponds to, about the
20%, yeah.
Yeah, about kind of, and it matches kind of the applicant pool as well. So I don't think there's a disadvantage or an advantage to be an international national student. And then if you're accepted a program, you're going to be, we take care of you for the whole period of time. So, clearly, it can make you more competitive to already have, fellowships and to come in with money, but it's definitely not something that, that is required. There's also questions about kind of, what is the current funding situation at Berkeley. And I think it's challenging for all graduate programs, but we are up for the task basically. So we are fighting to make sure that this stays a vibrant program. And so again, it's I cannot say it hasn't affected us, but we're working hard to make sure that we can continue to be to do great science. Okay, Sophia.
Before we leave
sorry.
the funding thing,
Yeah.
one of the kind of other questions about that is, whether or not the support the program provides is kind of sufficient to live in the Bay Area. And so I wonder if we can have like the students comment on that.
I can give a quick comment about it. My short answer is yes, but I think it depends on like necessarily what sort of lifestyle you're used to. For me, Berkeley offers grad student housing, which is subsidized, and that helps a lot with cost. And you can generally, like, there's not an issue buying food or like basic necessities or something like that. If you want to go to like outside lands in Coachella, it is going to be you're probably going to have to budget more. In the context of like living the Bay, like on this stipend, personally, I found it very easy to afford rent, afford food, afford like a gym membership, like fill up my Roth IRA, like stuff like that. But I also don't like spend a ton of money doing like big things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you want to prioritize in terms of where you want to spend your money. So like I probably pay a little bit more in rent than the average person because I don't like commuting. So I live like a block away from campus because that was what's important to me. But then I know a lot of people that live like 30 minutes away, they pay a lot less in rent, then they have more money to travel or things like that. So definitely very doable. You might have to make small adjustments based on what you think is important and what you want to spend your money on, but it's definitely livable.
Yeah, I don't have anything
Okay,
to add to that. That's right.
great. All right, Sophia, sorry, go ahead.
No worries at all. Thank you all so much. This has been a super helpful session. So I have a question for the current grad students on the call. So I kind of come from a more interdisciplinary background in research. I spent a lot of time working in genomics industry. And I wanted to know, is it better that you tailor your statement of purpose to, like, is it better that you give a research proposal that aligns well with your background, or is it okay to like propose more exploratory ideas, so to speak? Like I'm trying to pivot from genomics and genetics, for example, and I'm trying to figure out like, do I need to do something that aligns with like my experience?
Sure. Actually, Frederic or Leleña might be better to ask this question too. But in my opinion, if I were in your situation, which I think I was in a sort of similar situation, maybe, I think it's just easier to write about what you know. And I think that maybe the statement of purpose is more about showing that you're able to think like a scientist and things like that than it is about what you're definitely going to do in the future.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for my statement, I talked about doing similar things that I had done previously just because I wanted to. But I think that, yeah, if I were in your shoes, I would definitely, like, I think, as Jessica mentioned, it's easy to write about what you know, but also you could talk about, like, why you want to pivot and what about Berkeley makes it the place that you want to pivot to. But I think that, yeah, in terms of, I don't read the applications, so I don't know exactly what they're looking for, but yeah, I don't think that there's any like right or wrong way to write it. As long as you like can talk about what you want to talk about, I think.
Thank you.
I think if you're changing field and you want to study something different, say it. I mean, you know, this, you want to be as honest, and, you know, this is, and it's great, right? I mean, you've done all this genomics, you have all this background, you have these tools, and maybe this is going to be useful to apply to something else. And so, you know, I mean, this is like doing both, right? Saying that you've done all this and you've become somewhat of an expert in it, and that now you want to be, you know, interested in something else. I think that's great. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay, Mike, you're next.
Thank you, and thank you for all the interesting information. My question is about interdepartmental applications. So I have an MBA from Haas, and I'm really interested in the cognitive area, especially how the brain's function under stress may underpin organizational behavior theory. I could apply through Haas and then ask for courses and faculty in the neuroscience department, or I could apply to neuroscience department and go the other way. Any insight or protocol on that? And if you're going to do propose an interdisciplinary approach in your statement of purpose, do you need approval from the other schools? Is there a way to coordinate that, or is that not needed? Do you just need to focus on the primary school?
Yeah, so you don't need to coordinate that. I think the first question is kind of like kind of a common theme, right? It's like you find yourself kind of in these two areas, and which department do you choose? I would, just to get, because I don't know exactly what you want to do, but we do have, faculty in the business school that are part of the neuroscience group. So I would talk to them and maybe to people also in psychology. So, if you could identify 2 or 3 people that you think, oh, I might be able to work with them. This is the kind of thing that I'm interested, and just, get their advice about, depending on what you want to do, kind of which is the program that is best, and then apply to that program. Berkeley does have this rule that you can only apply to one graduate program, right?
Per year, yeah.
Yeah, so you have to choose which one. So, yeah, I don't know, Leleña, we do have this thing with vision science and MCB, right? Or psychology, but not with the Haas.
No. So one of the questions on the application, so in the application, like the very first page of the application, when you put in information, you'll need to select what program you're applying to. And once you select that, the application will populate a page within the application for the program. So on our neuroscience page in the application, we have some questions there for our applicants to fill out. And one of the questions asks you if you are open to have your application. If you are not admitted to our program, are you open to having your application transferred to MCB, psychology, or vision science? It is not a guarantee that your application will be transferred to any of those. It's a very select group of applications that we may transfer over, but we don't have anything with Haas. So that would be something like if your focus is really on business, but you would like to have some neuroscience, then maybe business is a better place for you, but then you incorporate some coursework, with that. If neuroscience is your thing, but you kind of want to have some, business leanings, then neuroscience might be the program, and then you take some coursework or, do some activities with business. So it really depends on where you are looking to immerse yourself for, your 5 to 6 years.
It's not required to actually have discussion or approval with the adjacent faculty in the other school, it seems like. Is that right?
Right.
No, but your,
Right.
Your ability to interact and what you do in the other program that you are not enrolled in might be limited. So, what kind of activity are you allowed to have if you are not a student in that program? So that might be limited.
My interest is actually in sort of brain function, especially under stress. I think there is a course in the cognitive area under about sort of the interaction of the amygdala and the cortex and that sort of thing. Are there particular faculty that would be interested in that area within the department currently?
There's a lot of people working on stress, but stress and cognition. I would look at the psychology faculty as well. I mean, there's nobody that comes like to my mind just like that.
Isn't Daniela doing something similar?
Daniela, yeah, but Daniela is doing kind of stress at the level of kind of stress and disease and how it affects your immune system and the glial cells. So it's a little bit of a different area, I think, than what you're interested in.
More how stress affects behavior. There's sort of an optimal theory,
Right.
and then there's how the human functions under stressful conditions and understanding those departures. Those are the harder problems sometimes.
Right. Yeah, I haven't looked at all the faculty. I mean, this is like, go and look at the faculty website in psychology and see if there's somebody who matches your kind of things that you want to do. So,
all right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate
yeah, you're
it.
welcome.
One of the professors that I can't remember if she's in neuroscience or not, but her name is Ulrike Merrimander or something like this. And I know that she was doing a project that was along those lines, I think.
Okay.
Thank you. Well.
Okay, Catherine, is that how you pronounce your name?
No, Hawthorne. No,
Okay.
you're good, man. Trust me, I've gone through about 50 different pronunciations of my name.
Okay.
It's Hawthorne. Just say it like Gotham with an H. And
Okay. Great. Hawthorne.
thank you to you and everyone else for the presentation and for the information session. The question I had was kind of more, I guess, post-application or post-acceptance is, in regards to mentorship between you and your chosen lab, is that more of a formal check-in or is that structure more lab dependent?
Oh boy. The honest answer is both. So we are working very hard to really have good mentor-mentee relationship and to have this culture where this is something that is an issue from year one. And we're implementing more and more things that are program-based and so forth. At some point, right, those can become like too much almost, like more hoops to jump through and so forth.
Exactly,
right? And so finding the right balance between having all that structure and we focus this is important, but at some point it's also something that's going to happen in your lab with your mentor. And we just hope that by the time you've done all these kind of exercises that are, part of the program, that this will be something that will work well, and that, you'll find the right kind of, oh, there you are. Sorry, I was looking for you in the screen. The right, mentor-mentee relationship, the one that really works for you. So.
Gotcha. Okay, so just to reiterate, there is still structure in that first year where you build up this kind of foundation,
Absolutely.
and you kind of carry it out with your mentor going forward.
That's the idea. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm in my first year now, so I'm not fully in a lab yet. I have an academic mentor, so basically we were all given as first years a PI that lines up with our main neuroscience interest, but it's not necessarily a PI that we're actually working with or will ever be in their lab. And it's just someone I've met with mine, I think twice so far. And she's a good resource to email about anything that's like, program related, or it can be lab related, or anything they'll answer if you want to talk to them about it. But that's something that, we were set up and told to have one meeting with them, but then anything beyond that is whether it's like, I like mine, so I talk to her somewhat often, and I get advice from her about different things. And then within the lab through rotations, so then that's why I said it's a mix of both. So like my lab, I have weekly meetings with my PI just to see like what I'm doing, and she's also helping me apply to fellowships and things like that. But then in addition to that, we have meetings with Frédéric and Leleña midway through our rotation to make sure that everything's going the way that we want it to, and just to talk about that. And then also at the beginning of our rotation, we sat down and had a meeting with the PI about expectations, like mentor-mentee expectations. And that's just within the 10-week rotation. So yeah.
I'm going to cut you off because we're getting to the end. And I think, we tried to answer all the questions. Christy, do you have a very short question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Actually, it's just a comment from Mike. Ming Xu has primary affiliation in the Haas School of Business, but also joint affiliation with the Health Neuroscience Institute. I just thought that was he could reach out to Ming Xu.
Tell me the name, Ming Xu?
It is spelled, the last name is pronounced Xu, but it's HSU.
Right.
So
Ming Xu. Oh, thank you. Ming HSU. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Christy. All right.
Really quickly, Frédéric, are you able to just comment on, reaching out to faculty prior to the application? Is it necessary? Should people do it? How helpful it is? Yeah.
Yeah. I think, so, I kind of encourage you to kind of reach out to faculty. You might not get an answer, and that not getting an answer does not mean anything. Right. So do not get discouraged if you do not get an answer. Right. I think just faculty are kind of busy. I think if you have specific questions about kind of which program best fits you, if you come in and says, I am really, wondering if I should do psych or neuro program. I'm interested in your work. Also, this is kind of thing that I want to do. I think the chances of you getting an answer are going to be much higher. Right. So if you have kind of like, specific questions like that. And so that would be kind of my recommendation, but it doesn't hurt. It's never going to hurt you. Just, don't take it personally if you don't get an answer. Right. So, and it might still be the person that you end up working with. And so I think that's the thing. Leleña, do we have the list of faculty I saw that are taking?
Yes, I posted, not that are taking students, but we do have our full list of faculty. So we don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a published list of who's taking students because at this early stage, it's tough for people to know. Yeah. But we do have.
I noticed that somebody was asking about that, and so it is true that not everybody would be taking a graduate student in that list, but so. And this is something else that you might want to ask in your, again, you might not get an answer and it might not mean anything, but something you might want to ask. I think we should close it now.
Yeah.
Because it is time. And I don't know, I'm supposed to read a little closing statement maybe. Oh yeah.
That's
So
cool,
I guess, mostly that a reminder that the application is due on November 21st by 9 p.m. Pacific time. and please do it before that time. And that additional details about the program and application would be found on our website, and that the link is now in the chat if you don't have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll be recording this session and posting it on our website, and also check there because I will try to send an announcement to everybody. Our students will also be hosting an information session at the end of this month, and it'll be by our students for applicants. So I encourage you to attend that as well.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Good luck with everything. Bye.